Hello, this is Greg House from Green Graves coming to you on 7 October 22. Time on deck is 01:5400 hours in the wee hours of the morning. My friends, there are all these experts out there now who are suddenly saying, don't worry about an EMP. You don't have to worry about an EMP, maybe the after effects, but don't worry about the EMP. I am going to punch holes all in these experts and I'm going to mop the floor with them. My friends, there is plenty to worry about, and I'm going to show you the fallacies and their logic, and then I'm going to show you examples for why they're wrong. Lots of them. I'm going to go through, I'm going to talk about this article, and then I'm going to show you other examples and articles and videos I've done from 2 years back, 3 years back, and way back, where I'm punching holes all in this. I'm going to show you examples from a PowerPoint presentation, which I started back when I did my first part of the Grid Defense Conference, probably in 2015 or so, for this presentation. And I'll show examples of why I'm quite the expert in this area, because I have done things that they allude to can't be done, I suppose, or won't be done. I'll show you why they're wrong, up one side and down the other. So buckle up, guys. We're going to go for a ride here. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, bang the update notification bell, and click all. Now, this is the article that they cite where they're going into and says, oh, fears of an EMP attack are overblown. It's what comes next that should worry you. And this was written by Jeff Skulligal. And he cites a couple of different so-called experts. But my friends, this guy is a reporter, and these experts have very limited worldview. Quite often, these policy experts don't really connect all the dots. Sometimes they just don't have the knowledge and wherewithal to do such. But I will bless you with that tonight. So I want to kind of, you're not supposed to scroll through these articles due to possible, I don't want to hit a copyright violation. So I'm just going to tell you what it says in a paraphrased manner. So he cites this so-called expert, Alex Wellerstein. So according to Alex Wellerstein, a specialist in the history of nuclear weapons at the private research institute, Stevens Institute of Technology in New Jersey. This guy's a well-paid individual. An EMP strike carried out by an enemy against the United States would probably be a precursor to a larger component for a nuclear attack. It could be. Not necessarily, though. It could be. They fail to understand Russian military doctrine here. And in Russian military doctrine, as the late, great Dr. Peter Vincent Pry told us, and it's in their doctrine. He quotes their doctrine when he talks about this kind of stuff. He didn't make this stuff up. He wasn't coming from conjecture, because he was one of the world's foremost experts in Russian weapons, and quite connected to quite a cadre of other similar experts. But anyway, Dr. Pry taught us that the Russian doctrine of EMP was that it was not a nuclear attack. It's an electronic form of warfare, because there's no nuclear impact directly on the country, and nobody directly dies, I said, from the EMP itself. Although, in the long run, more people will die from an EMP attack than a nuclear war if it didn't cause power grid loss problems. So we're going to talk into that. So we'll go all in this. Okay, so Wellerstein, he asserted that he does not think, where does he get paid to think? Oh, I guess he does, excuse me. He does not think that a foreign foe would attempt to strike the U.S. with just such an EMP, since the U.S. military would be expected to respond to such an attack with nuclear weapons. Oh, really? Oh, really? If one, they might not, but chances are twofold. Here's the problem. There's two problems, two very big, actually three, but two major fundamental problems with this logic. One, to respond, you got to know who you're responding to. And I'm going to show you in a little bit later why you ain't going to know who did it. You're not going to know who did it. And Dr. Pry agreed with this. You're not going to know who did it. And there's a good chance that if you didn't know, you could not respond for several reasons. One, you may not have the technical means to do so because your technical means may have been taken out. And three, if you do have the technical means, you may have been hit by a first strike or other activity that renders you under the influence of nuclear blackmail in such a way that you will not respond. And the final leg of that is, well, it didn't kill anybody directly. And it takes a year maybe for most, or at least several months for most people to die. So do you launch an all-out attack if you have the wherewithal, if you know who did it and you have the wherewithal, both of which are highly, highly unlikely, almost zip. I'll show you how the countries can pull these attacks off and how they're already planning to. This is what we're going to go into. I'm going to show you how several countries are already planning and equipping themselves to pull off just such an attack and do so in such a way that you will not know who did it. And I'll explain how they can do this, where you won't know, and how they can take out your means of response. That's all coming. But let me continue with this. This poor underbaked analysis from Mr. Wellenstein. Anyway, he says, the escalation risk would be through the roof, even if the attack wasn't that damaging. And he continued, he said that, and if the attack was extremely damaging, to the degree that the people afraid of an EMP attack fears, that's an odd way to say things, then it would be easily considered a major mass casualty producing nuclear attack. Major mass casualty, yeah. But, you know, this is some mushy logic here. The escalation risk will be through the roof. Well, they're only through the roof if you know who you're escalating against. Right now, we are on the precipice of potential war with North Korea. I mean, right now, there's articles that are saying North Korea and South Korea are very much at the verge of war at this moment. And that drags us into it because we're already tied at the hip with South Korea on this. And then China with Taiwan and us with Russia. Yeah, there's several culprits that could play into this. Even Iran. But Iran seems to be heading in the other direction. Iran might be a freedom-loving country here in a short term of time. Time will tell. But then again, maybe the Ayatollahs will like to pull a rabbit out of their hat and cause something to happen. Might think that would give them the assurance of power. I would go, yeah, well, Greg, they don't have a nuke yet. Well, if you'd ever heard Dr. Pry and I speaking in previous interviews, we have reason to think that they got, I always thought two before then, and intel from Dr. Pry. And also we discussed this with with David Pine in previous videos. There's some intel that suggests they may have four already from Russia, from Kazakhstan. Okay, guys, when Kazakhstan fell, some odd things happened, according to certain sources, okay? All right. According to certain sources, not verified, but highly suspicious. Anyway, so this really begs this whole escalation risk argument this guy's making. That last statement I read from was really just a rehash of the previous statement, you know, refried beans. And he goes on talking about his imagination. I find it hard to imagine that an adversary would simultaneously believe that an EMP attack would be simultaneously catastrophic and it wouldn't warrant catastrophically large response. This guy has a huge failure of imagination. And then he added, this seems to imagine, he's all into imagining things, a very strange adversary. Guy, I think you're kind of strange in lack of imagination yourself. Aren't you some highly paid think tank? Wow. Hey guys, I'm not done with this. I'm going to go through these things with some other articles, video, and charts. And we've been here before. If you've watched my channel, some of this is more refried beans, guys. I've covered some of this territory in the past, but I'm going to put it all in this package for tonight with this focus and maybe add a little bit to it. So, yeah. Now, there's this other expert, Dr. Martin Pfeiffer. He's a candidate. Well, This is odd. They call him, it's referring to him as a PhD here, but this is what's really strange. It sounds like he's still working on his PhDs. I don't know. I think maybe the author of the article got a little charitable here. Anyway, according to Martin Pfeiffer, a PhD candidate, there we go, at the University of New Mexico, whose study involves potential use of nuclear weapons. So he's studying them. He, like Dr. Pry, who was a world-renowned expert in it. So the worry that a high-altitude EMP attack might quickly destroy every electronic item in North American continent is unfounded. So what? You got to be kidding me. Nobody ever said it would destroy every electronic component in North America. And what difference does it make? What do electronic components require to operate? Power, electricity. Yeah, it's the electric grid we've been talking about. It's the electric grid we've been most concerned with. It's the electric grid going down this long-term problem. And, you know, even if you've got your own little solar array, if the cell phone towers aren't working, if the internet servers aren't working, and they won't be, not past a certain point, the comms will come down. Those little devices are going to be useless. All your little personal electronic devices. I mean, if you can keep your refrigerator running for a while, well, good for you. You're a successful prepper. That's what we teach here, is prepping. But guys, the whole idea that this somehow matters, it is part of the argument, misses the point. It misses the point. What happens? The comm systems fail. You're not pumping water. You don't have any water. The sewage, all your critical infrastructure falls apart. You're not pumping fuel. There's no fuel transport. No money in your bank account. Your phone's not working. Your internet's not working. Internet is used for everything these days. We order everything. We control everything these days through the internet. It's gone. All your comms, they just totally, completely miss the point. So what if you got a few electronics? There'll be some cars that'll survive. We've said that. We've always said that. That was never the point. Good grief. You know, sometimes these writers just don't know where to go to find good content for their articles. They don't go to the top experts. I don't know, there's a reason for that. They go to these guys who are still working on their PhD, who haven't got it yet. How about going to the guys who are way beyond that, like Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, who we've lost, but, you know, I still got a lot of videos from him. Even Nate with Canadian Prepper, he's got videos with him too. Check him out. And my friend Rex Baer with Leap Project, he got a video with Dr. Brian. He did, you know, he asked some really good questions too. So we've got several programs with Dr. Pry, guys, that you can research. And I should put more links to mine up here again in the future, and I will. But anyway, so this guy is really just yapping his gums. According to Pfeiffer, the amount of harm that EMPs do to electronic devices depends on the number of variables, including their location, length of their antenna, and if they're inside a hardened structure. Additionally, even if the cell towers themselves survive, they themselves were destroyed by an EMP strike, certain cell phones might be able to function. Cell phones. See what he said? He said cell phones. Well, if the network's down, the phones might still function. What? Excuse me? What good is a phone if the network's not functioning? Oh my God. And no, the network will go down. It will go down. I got a crazy. I don't know what's going on here. I'm just trying to scroll and it's sending me all kind of little messages here. Anyway, so a lot of nonsense in the logic of these individuals, but they concede. Nevertheless, the power grid networks in the United States are already susceptible to blackouts brought by strong winds and squirrels, you know, let alone EMPs. Well, there's a big difference in what a strong wind and a squirrel is going to do versus an EMP. But yeah, he does recognize that the power grid is vulnerable. At least it gets that part. And I'm going to go in that minute. It says, yeah, detonate a nuke in the upper atmosphere above America is going to cause large portions of the country to lose electrical power for some portion of time. Again, I'm hearing his ignorance loud because he don't understand what it is that fails and how hard it is to replace it. That part he misses, which means this guy hasn't done his homework. The question becomes, how likely is it that a terrible written article, will result in long-term power loss, and what sorts of permanent damage will be done by those electronic devices critical to function in society? Again, he's focused on the electronic devices, and a lot of them will be fried. All right, so here's what is missing, and I've covered this many times. The most vulnerable component, the one that's the Achilles heel to the whole power grid, is these large, long distance, high voltage, long distance power transformers you find at these big substations. The ones that are stepping the power up to 200,000, 300,000, in some cases 700, 750,000 volts, and transmitting that power for miles and miles and miles. Very high voltage, alternating current power. They couldn't do it with direct current. And the beauty of Tesla's innovations, guys, Nikola Tesla, not the car Tesla, not Elon Musk's invention, but the original Tesla. All this stuff, our whole modern society came out of his mind. What? Anyway, so what he's missing is that an EMP fries the coils of these transformers. These transformers are hand wound. They come principally from Germany and South Korea, two countries that each are on various poles of facing military problems right now, but they're produced at a rate basically for new supply and occasional replacement. These things aren't replaced, but very, very, very rarely. So the production capacity is low. When you order one of these things, by means, you order these things through the internet and you pay through it for them with electronic money through banking accounts, which is all electronic. All this will be gone if we lose the power grid. All the means to contact people, to put in an order, to receipt it, invoice it, to pay for it, it's all gone. But if that wasn't gone, if it was all in place and somehow you lost the power, but you had power so that you could do the functions that you'd want to do, which ain't gonna be there. But anyway, let's just pretend, because this guy's in the pretend world. Everything's imaginary to him. All this stuff you talk, well, I imagine this, I imagine that. Guys, we're talking about 18 months to get from the time you place an order to get that transformer on your loading dock. But then you got to install it. So you got to get all your little workers out there to pull that thing in and install it, which your loading dock sometimes is a long way from where this thing's got to get. Some of these things were taken out to where they're at today with trains. In many cases, the rails aren't even there anymore. Those things have been out there so long. And these take very special train cars and ships and vehicles to move around and transfer. I've shown you this stuff before. There's like, maybe a half a dozen of these schleppnel cars, what do they call them, that for the trains, the whole country. There's very few of these things weigh 200 to 400 tons a piece. They're as big as a house. And like I said, the coils are hand wound. Oh, just give me a drawing. No, South America tried that. They thought, oh yeah, we'll get drawings and we'll make our own. And yeah, they spent time, all theirs burned out in 3 years. But it took them a while to build them too, just like, but the guys didn't have the experience, the expertise, which doesn't come in a shop drawing or, in an engineering drawing. The expertise for really how to do things is all up here. This is why it's so hard to build an F1 rocket engine. A lot of people keep, well, we lost the technology. No, we didn't lose it. We just outgrew it. Another topic. But anyway, so guys, 18 months. But here's the other. So, okay, well, we'll get our workers. We'll get it out in place eventually. You got to really realize it's within the first year that 9 out of 10 Americans have died. So this is a half a year past the point that we've already lost most of the country. We've already had a major catastrophic event in the United States that will be worse, take out more people than a full-scale nuclear war. Yeah, through societal collapse. This is the conclusion of the EMP, Congressional EMP Task Force which Dr. Peter Vincent-Price supported. And furthermore, I talked to him about why I felt like that was a very optimistic number based on the actual way food is produced today, which that was not factored into their conclusions. And he thought, so yeah, I think you've got a point. So it's going to be very catastrophic if we lose our power grid. Okay, today, here in 2022, you have a whole lot of trouble finding people to work. What happens when most of your workforce is gone? They don't even exist. You don't have the tools to work with anyway. You got on your loading dock. What, you got to have fuel to pump to run the truck that's going to move that thing, or the train. You have fuel. That fuel has to be pumped. There's no pumps. That truck requires spare parts and maintenance to keep it going all that 18 months. Well, there's no supply chain anymore. The stores are shut down. There's no catalogs. There's nothing, guys. There's actually no way to do this job. That's the problem. When we get 18 months out and you got thousands and thousands of transformers replaced, some people say, well, if we replace them, it might take up to 10 years to replace them. That's if you have a working infrastructure that allows you to do it. You ain't going to have it. It's gone. It's gone. Humpty Dumpty has fallen off the wall. It's going to take a generation or two or three to rebuild the infrastructure that took a generation or two or three to build in the first place. And remember, our power grid started in the 1920s. We've been building this thing for 100 years. Actually, in places, it started at the turn of the century, where Tesla and the guys were active up in, around the Niagara Falls. I mean, the previous turn of the century, over 120 years ago. So, guys, yeah, it's going to take a lot when you won't have the tools, the expertise, the knowledge. I mean, everybody now, all they know how to use is power tools, internet, all these tools that won't be available to them. We don't have the infrastructure that we had back then to do things without the power, which we so require today. So in many ways, they had a leg up on us back then that we don't have today. We have to retool, relearn, and do so with a much smaller workforce. And most of that workforce is going to be heck bent on just trying to find food to eat and keep somebody from beating their heads in, taking the mom and the kids. It's going to be a very dire time. It's going to take a lot, and you got to have some cohesion in society, some law and order in order to operate even. How are you going to start pulling things together in a Mad Max world? Everybody wants to, if you got fuel and you got the means to put the power grid together, they're trying to take it from you. So this whole notion, oh yeah, we might get our power might be out for a few months, and we'll figure out a way. We'll get it put back together. I hear that a lot. No, the answer is no, no, no. You are back to the Stone Age, and you ain't crawling back out of that Stone Age for some time, maybe never, because you may collapse so hard. It's like when the Roman Empire fell, we had the Dark Ages in Europe for a millennium. So that's kind of what we might be facing. Did the Mayans come back? No. When the Aztecs fell, what happened? That was it. Of course, they got kind of pushed by the Spanish, but we've had civilizations that fell before, and it takes a long time for a civilization to come back. But that's civilizations that didn't require the technology that we require today. The higher you are, the farther you fall. Okay, so let me add to this. According to Bill Lewis, the spokesperson for Northcom and NORAD, the threat of losing communications, and say power, the threat of losing communications due to an EMP is real enough for the military that both the U.S. Northern Command, the Combatant Command for North America, and the North American Aerospace Defense Command have facilities that are meant to withstand the effects of an EMP. I'm missing part of this article here. And these facilities include Colorado Springs-based Cheyenne Mountain and the Space Force. And okay, but also a lot of these facilities were hardened to 50,000 volts per meter, and the Soviet era EMP super weapons, which China and North Korea both now have, by admission of the Russian generals after the wall fell, to Dr. William Graham, who's another one of the top experts in Russian weaponry and EMPs. So and he's in the same school of thought as Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, by the way. So, guys, what this article went on further to say, okay, we got some facilities, and then it said, well, given warning, I'm sure I find the exact article text on this. I thought I had remembered it or had it in here in my notes. Let's see. Yeah, where is it? Oh, here it is. Given sufficient strategic and tactical warning of an imminent EMP attack, NORAD, NORAD and U.S. NORTHCOM, excuse me, can relocate our key work centers to the EMP protected facilities and sustain operations. Whoa, that's a big if. Given sufficient strategic and tactical warning of an imminent EMP attack. There's two things you can bring us. One, where they're operating from right now is not secure. They don't have a lot of their key systems in these facilities. Given sufficient strategic and tactical warning of an imminent EMP attack, NORAD and U.S. NORTHCOM can relocate our key work centers to EMP protected facilities and sustain operations. Well, the big linchpin in that is given sufficient strategic and tactical warning. Hey, we're gonna shoot an EMP at you in 4 hours and 30 minutes. There won't be any warning. I mean, you might think, well, we're in a high enough tension that maybe it'll happen. But look, guys, if this comes, China and Russia both have tactics for surprise attacks, especially China. China has started a lot of their wars with surprise attacks. First strikes is very much within the mode of the kind of ways they've operated in the past, irregardless of what their doctrines say that they put out for us to read. And look how they've operated. That's what they've typically done. So this whole notion of, oh, blah, blah, blah. Well, guys, we're going to go through these things. We're going to go through. Oh, yeah, by the way, another thing you should be aware of is that China is buying U.S. farmland near U.S. military bases. I remember Admiral Kirby was talking about things going on in Ukraine, and one of the reporters stood up and said, hey, what about all this land being bought by China near U.S. mountain? And he said, oh, well, did you start talking about freedom to buy property? Totally seemed to miss the point. Excuse me, not Kirby, Admiral Kirby. Oh, no, he knew what he was talking about. He was playing dumb because he knew the administration wasn't doing their job. And this is a threat. Because if you're right next to that military base, it's supposed to be hard, and you got your land there, what do you got there? You got some means there to inhibit the communications from that military base? That's all it would take. All it would take. We'll have to have an invasion force. Oh, yeah, most military bases, man, the only thing guarding them some deputy dogs with a little pea shooters on their hip. I mean, and the chain link fence, so if the Mexican cartels were to invade a military base, they could go straight through it, just like the Taliban did in Afghanistan, even easier. At least in Afghanistan, we're in a war situation. Our military bases here in the United States, how are they secured? Oh, they got all these weapons. Yeah, they're all locked up. They're all locked up. They're not out to use unless you're going to a range. So, no, it's a farce, man. We're living really soft here in this country. Oh yeah, so the United States is worried about some stuff. We're purchasing $290 million of drugs for use in radiological and nuclear emergencies. So at least, and even Biden, oh, he's evoking the possibility of Armageddon. I bet the equipment hadn't been that. Guys, if you're not prepping, go right now to prepwithgreg.com. Prepwithgreg.com, and you can get this 3-month supply of emergency food for 20% off. Check it out, guys. You really need to look at that. And you can also get a month supply at a great discount here. And guys, look at this. This is good food. Lots of it. It's got variety for those that worry about variety. It's got drinks, desserts, last 25 years, 2,000 calories a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 21 varieties, up to 25-year-old shelf life. Probably won't be longer than that. So guys, also Well, yeah, there's a lot there. Let's go on. I've done several videos on this topic, guys. Chinese missile crisis, China's sneak attack missile. This video was done December 17th, 2021, about a year ago. Let's see, I've done some others. Here's this is the kind of systems we're talking about, guys. But that was with Stacy Zivicki. Here's what I did with Stacy Zivicki even earlier, 13 May 2020, talking about her vision for an attack from Venezuela. She had certain conditions. She brought in this vision. Her vision included certain things that would happen, though that didn't happen in 2020. But they just happened. They just took place. And we talked about that in this video, EMP attack vision coming to pass. And we just did this a couple months ago, this one here. Stacy Zivicki. Now she's a dairy employee, working milking cows, and she's a homesteader and prepper, and she knew nothing about EMPs. And she had this very detailed vision, not only about EMP, but the nature of the best concept for a sneak attack, which totally blew my mind. It's like, how did she come up with this? Well, it was shown to her. Believe that or not, but let's go here and look at what is being developed, my friends. What is being developed? Oh, Greg, they can't do a sneak attack. How would they do that? Here's the problem. If you come out of a place such as Venezuela, oh yeah, I'm going to show you a little bit where the North Koreans apparently practiced at least a 3, maybe a 4-pronged attack on our power grid back in the year 2013, 16 April 2013. Yeah, 9 years ago. And they had missile launchers probably in the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea, on a ship, and a satellite capable of fractional orbital bombardment flew over Washington, D.C. on the same day while the ship was in the ocean south of us, and there was an attack, ballistic attack on the Metcalf station at San Jose, California. Same day, 16 April 2013. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. But guys, that's North Korea. Oh, North Korea don't have blah, blah. Oh, yeah, guys. Oh, yeah, really. They're orbiting satellites. They're getting intercontinental ballistic missiles. Oh, but their nukes aren't that big, or hydrogen bombs small. No. That's exactly the optimum size for an EMP weapon, super weapon. It's the bigger one. See, when you make them bigger to handle them, you got to have more shielding. To have the EMP super weapon, the way you maximize the gamma rays is have less shielding. So the smaller ones are actually more potent. Yeah, and the most potent range is right around the size of the ones that were testing, about 300 kilotons. Anyway, so here we are, guys. This is a ship launch. Let's go back to the beginning of this video. I'm going to take it. This is a ship launch from a video from China. Here we go. They make one space. Why is the Chinese rocket got English writing on it? Okay, let's go back to the beginning. We're going to show you that they got this concept here for this missile that could be launched. It's actually capable of space launch, but space launcher is also an intercontinental ballistic missile. You got to understand that. This could carry very significant weapons and be launched from anywhere. And they've also got concepts for smaller ones, which would be good at theater level launches, which would be sufficient for the Gulf of Mexico. So let's look at this. I got English writing and the Chinese CCP flag. And what they put them in? ISO shipping containers, my friends. ISO shipping containers, just like we used to ship all over the world. They're stacking them up with the intermodal port facilities. Well, we got one of those right here in Huntsville, Alabama. They're just showing us what's inside. It's kind of an emotional cutaway. Here they're showing us how this thing could open, how the missile would deploy. Now they're showing it could load us on barges, trains, planes, and automobiles, trucks. There it is, loaded on a truck. Train. plane. Planes, trains, and automobiles. I kid you not. Remember the movie? Well, that's it, guys. This is a Chinese-produced video, guys. That's carried in the U.S. Sun website here, magazine. Truck just parks and drives off, and the thing opens up and launches from anywhere. How do we know these aren't sitting in the port of Los Angeles right now? China's built more advanced rockets than this, and deployer systems like this are technologically simple. So the idea they couldn't, if you think they couldn't do this, you're sadly mistaken. And here's a scenario I'm most worried about: the ship launch from a cargo ship, an innocent little cargo ship. And they got cargo ships all over the world, moving things around every day, routine basis. So nobody thinks anything about a cargo ship, do they? Oh yeah, by the way, Israelis launched a rocket from a cargo ship too. Showing different versions. See, this is a promo video. Let's have some Chinese writing up here on it. Family of launch vehicles, portable, expandable. All right, guys. So this is in the sun. I want to scroll down to the bottom. I think this is a, and here's what's scary. Chinese missile crisis. China could use its container missiles to smuggle nukes close to the U.S. And where do they show them going to? Not Venezuela, because China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran are all very active in Venezuela. They just had a joint military exercise with Venezuela, and Iran's actually been selling big missiles to Venezuela. And the problem is, if you go off the Venezuela is a failed state. It's not really functional. So if you go a few miles offshore of Venezuela, any of these countries could launch something, and Venezuela wouldn't even know who did it. Only the launcher would know. Now China might do it, just hoping that we would blame Russia. And then we get into it more with Russia, and hey, Taiwan is theirs for the taking. So you really think that we're going to reply? Oh yeah, and I'm gonna hear it right now. Oh, Greg, but we know how to pick up the remnants from the bomb and do forensics, something know where it came from. Excuse me. If you'd explode a nuclear device over 100, 200 miles in altitude over the United States, the remnants will burn up in the atmosphere. What isn't exploded by the detonation itself. You ain't gonna find anything. You ain't gonna find dust. You find nothing. Yet nothing. So that is the issue. You're not going to find anything. It's going to be launched in the south. You're not going to see it coming. So much for that warning the guys at U.S. Northcom and other commands are looking for. Cheyenne Mountain guys. They ain't going to see it coming. They're not going to know it. Just one day, poof, the lights go out. That's how it works. That's the whole purpose of an EMP attack, is to be a surprise attack. That is the purpose of it, is to do it when you least expect it. That is the purpose. So what's all this idea of a warning is a joke. Here it is. This is what I was looking for earlier. This is the Israelis testing a rocket launch from what? Yeah, a container ship. That's not even a big large one like the Chinese have. I don't even look like ISO shipping containers. It might be. Those are short ones right there. I don't know what this stuff is down here. So there it is, guys. It's been done. And China's even gone farther. You see, they're looking at theater type missiles too, not just the big ones like you saw.
Greenhouses are great assets. They're great for growing all year round. For
Got an ad here.
propagating.
Hang on. There we go. Well, these got little comm shelters on the side. Look at it, it's like a little antenna pop up. So communicate, change targeting. Smaller ship, it's not even. That's a utility boat. There's a cargo ship.
After collecting evidence.
Oops. Well, there you go. So they show you, now you've seen their theater ballistic missiles and their strategic ballistic missiles. So I'll share you links to these videos in here. And here's one that I did, explain how Russia could win a nuclear war and take Alaska. Well, at least on paper. Some people say, you know, I had a comment on a video I posted, I believe yesterday. Somebody said, well, neither the United States or Russia could win a nuclear war. Wrong answer. If Russia does a first strike, they absolutely can win a nuclear war, and they know it. Putin has said we could fight the United States and win a nuclear war. He has said that several times from years back. See, in the Clinton era, we come up with a nutty thing. We used to have a nuclear response that we would launch on warning, that we know the missiles are coming, we verify it, then we launch so our missiles won't get taken out. But Clinton decided, oh, we should absorb the first strike and then launch on the enemy. And the idea has been, and a lot of people have always said, well, great, we always got all these submarines out at sea. The submarines will take care of everything. They will be our ultimate backup that our submarines will launch. No, they won't. No, for several reasons. One, the submarine, well, let's look at the difference in U.S. and Russian nuclear launch tactics or systems. Russia has a dead hand system. Let me end. Hang on, I'm going to show another video. I'm going to end this, and I'm going to go look at grid down. Much, oh yeah, somebody want to know. Grid down, much worse than nuclear war. How to fix it? You got to watch this video too. Now we're going to stop this share, and I'll go into another share in a moment and talk about things from some PowerPoint slides. Guys, Russia has a dead hand switch. The dead hand switch works like this. If there's a detonation or what looks like electronically to the sensors of the system, a detonation in Russia. If it's a sound wave, a pressure wave, you know, you should probably not looking for radiation because the sensors might be way removed from the radiation. So either pressure or sound waves. What else are they going to be looking at? You know, you realize that the Tunguska meter probably caused the same signal. So they're also looking for loss of communications to Moscow. Is it possible that a meter could take out comms in Moscow? I don't know, guys. Or something else might be coincident with this. You know, yeah, I've often wondered if there's some natural event that could trigger the dead hand switch, because the dead hand switch, what it does, once these conditions are met, oh yeah, it's got to be turned on, but unfortunately, it is turned on right now. And it loses communications with Russia, and there's something that tells it that there was a nuclear detonation anywhere in this biggest nation on Earth, which, like I said, might be a natural event. But what if you have an EMP from the sun, solar CME, and something happens that looks like a detonation of a nuclear device? Maybe something that big explodes in Russia because it lost power and was run out of control. Dead hand switch launches every nuclear device in Russia. All their neutral. Full scale, total launch. Our system, by comparison, we can't launch unless a lot of conditions are met. Our submarines have to have the EAM, the emergency action message, alert message, and they have to have a validation of it. Now, this tells them that they're authorized to launch and what the targets are. It's got all the codes. So they have to get the message, and then you got to get the validation message. Even the message itself has code in its of the nature to be validated, but they got to get two messages. So the communications network has to work twice for these guys to even be able to launch. And problem is, and what those guys say, oh, well, if we get our stuff in the facility, if there's sufficient warning, and if they got their stuff in the facilities already, there's still problems with, and maybe the facilities operate, but the comm systems outside may not. But a lot of these facilities were hardened to 50,000 volts per meter. The old military standard. Now, maybe they've retrograde fixed some of these. I don't know if you can actually harden a facility for 200,000 volts per meter. That's going to be difficult. You probably can to some degree, but all the comms will be difficult. So it can't be done, but it'll be difficult. We can harden the power grid, but comm systems are a little more antennas and stuff like that. Those kind of electronics are easier to fry over the higher range frequencies of an EMP as opposed to the longer range frequencies that you would get with solar chronal mass ejections. But you still lose power grid and any long-term grid with the longer frequency waveforms. There's E1, E2, and E3. Yeah, I've talked about that in previous videos. I'm not going into that here because I've already been on this too long. So here's the thing, guys. So you get attacks. Here's what we always think that there's going to be a multi-pronged attack. And this is what Dr. Price taught us, and what we've seen evidence of. I'm going to show you a little bit. Is that this has already been practiced. They would launch a cyber attack, direct kinetic attacks on substations and other critical elements of our infrastructure, EMP through one or more sources to generate EMPs, and other means. So we see the electronic cyber attack, the direct ballistic attacks, and EMP attacks. So this is what we got to look forward to, unfortunately, if they're going to try to take down our grid. So let me now, oh yeah, satellites. That's the other thing I was trying to think of. Yeah, Russians have got a new laser system. It can take out a lot of our satellite comms, and they've already practiced the direct kill. It also causes a lot of shrapnel in space, unfortunately. So guys, all the lasers got to do is blind the satellite. They don't have to turn it into shrapnel. It's not a Star Wars explosion kind of thing. It's just render the thing inoperable. Take it up to too much heat, cause things to burn out inside components, or blind its sensors, damage the solar arrays. Just got to be bright enough in it to do damage to the satellite. Don't have to burn holes in it, and it would have a hard time through the atmosphere. Burn an actual hole through the satellite, but they could blind it. And apparently the Russians tested a laser from Sari-Shagan back in the 80s against one of the military missions, the U.S. Space Shuttle. The U.S. Space Shuttle was hit by a laser from the Soviet Union back in the days, and this has been very, very hush-hush. What damage was done, we don't know. But the Russians were already working on these systems, and they actually hit our space shuttle. And maybe they didn't hit it with full strength on purpose, or maybe they did. I don't know, guys. But that was very risky of them. Very risky to actually take a step like that. I mean, they could start a war or something crazy like that. So we've seen Russia take some risk in the past. It might take them again here in the near future. Let's hope not. But they've had a history of some strange things, guys. So, all right. So we're going to go in. I'm going to look at this PowerPoint presentation. I got to get it opened up here. And we're going to do a share. And we're almost done, guys. We're almost done. Bear with me for just a few moments. PowerPoint. Here it is, guys. I'm not going to go through this whole presentation. I'm just going to go look at a few charts to give you some overall understanding. You see this diameter here, 30 kilometers. I have flown balloons with heavy packages and payloads, including rockets, to higher altitudes than this. This altitude, if placed, say, over New York City, would take out everything from Boston to Washington, D.C. with an EMP. Heavy damage. Now, this is the kind of stuff that you do from space, from orbit, 400 kilometers. That's pretty typical, guys, for an orbit, 400 kilometers. Well, you take out most of Mexico, practically the entire continent of the United States, except maybe Maine, a few eastern New England states, and most of Canada. I mean, you take out North America, Miami would be okay. If they could move it over a little bit, go a little higher. But this is considered to be the radius of destruction of an EMP as a function of altitude above the Earth's surface. This is a little less than 20 miles high. My balloons have flown to 20 miles and a little higher, 100,000 feet. I have flown a balloon to 115,000 feet. That's my first one. All right, now this is what I was talking about. And from February through April 2013, the North Koreans had several things that came at us. They were threatening us. There was a lot of tension with them. They were threatening us at that time frame. At the same very time frame, their KMS-3 satellite flew directly over Washington, D.C. for the first time on 16 April 2013. You'll see that date again in a minute. So if this would be a fractional orbital bombardment system, we don't know that don't have a nuke on it. Now, I have a friend who was there when they supposedly launched this satellite, and they showed him a satellite, which he looked at and verified was a satellite. What they would not let him see is the installation of that satellite in the rocket. He asked for that, and they would not let him see it. So he said, well, I can't vouch if that's the satellite you launched. James Oberg. We're talking about James Oberg, my friends. So, and that's what James Oberg told me directly. So he says, oh, they may have a nuke on that satellite. They would not let me see them install that satellite. They brought him over there, the only U.S. aerospace engineer. He's both an aerospace engineer and a journalist. He's the only one they allowed in that facility, and he brought him there specifically to vouch for what they were launching. Now, the whole notion they wanted to vouch for that makes you really ask the question then, why did they really want to do that? Was it to give them cover? But they didn't allow him to see the most crucial thing, which was, did they actually load that satellite on that bird, which is highly suspicious. So his suspicion was that they did not launch that satellite, that it was a cover. They tried to use him and they launched something else. That's what he believes. Now, he's also pretty much a skeptic in many areas, but on this thing, he's really concerned. This is the orbital patterns of the KMS-3. And you can see that, yeah, on 16 April 2013 was its first pass directly over Washington, D.C. And at the same time, they had this ship floating around in the Gulf of Mexico called the Chongqing. And what are they finding in the Chongqing? Let me, I don't want to open this up right now. They found in a cargo hold under several bags of sugar, these missile launchers with direct missiles inside the launchers in ISO shipping containers. So North Korea has already done that. Oh yeah, North Korea was operating the ship, but it was owned by Iran. Oh yeah, so Iran, North Korea. So they had two nuclear capable SA-2 missiles out there in the Gulf of Mexico. They interdicted these things. They wanted to go around South America, but whether something happened, they couldn't get around South America. So they thought they could sneak it through the Panama Canal, and they got caught there in July. But these things were running around in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time that this satellite was flying over the United States. And what happened on this day, 16 April 2013? Well, the Metcalf station in San Jose was attacked that very same day, 16 April 2013. Professional attack, AK-47s. Some Navy SEALs went in and looked at it and said, this looked like a dry run operation for somebody to practice taking out the grid. It was a very sophisticated attack, what happened. And I'm not going to go all into it. We've talked about it in the past. Needless to say, the key thing is it happened on the same day. And we don't know there wasn't some dry run hacking attacks either. So 9 years ago, 9.5 years ago, dry run attacks, simulated attacks, practice all occurred by North Korea. North Korea, with China and Russia are each more capable of pulling off a mission like this, but North Korea actually gave it a dry run, it seems. Now, we don't know if this was actually North Koreans. I got to confess that. And it could have been some other allied group. The head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard was told, hey, there's 9 critical substations in the United States. If you take them out, the whole grid goes. He says, I already got 20 covered with sleeper cells. So they've already got plans in this area, guys. Bear that in mind. So But you can say, Greg, this takes very sophisticated groups to pull off things like that, blah, 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 blah. You know, if here's arguments like that. I'm gonna tell you something, guys. This is why I bring unique capacities to the table here, because I myself have devised 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, I myself devised a launch system fully capable of doing the same job. I didn't have a nuke that could have gave an EMP, although we could have come up with some electronic means to do a, you know, pinch device that could have generated an EMP wave, not as big as a nuke. But guys, here I am 20 years ago in a garage building rocket motors and things like that. Here I'm coordinating supplies on the cell phone. We're probably out here at midnight. And this is the team of people we had working on this stuff. This is our rocket shop, and this was our electronics shop in a separate garage. And on a shoestring budget, we accomplished amazing things. We went out into sea in the Gulf of Mexico with rockets and balloons. I kid you not. There is the first balloon we launched from a deck of a boat in the Gulf of Mexico, and there's a rocket. So this thing could have got up there that 30 kilometers. Oh, this rocket could have went much higher. So yeah, we could have got a whole lot bigger radius, much bigger radius with just the rockets that we had. And that was by no means our biggest rocket or our only rocket. Here we built a little rocket plane with a hybrid rocket motor. This was a UAV rocket plane. It had a pitot tube in it, had avionics up here. This was the rocket motor, fuel, all that here. This was a subscale model. We flew multiple times, both with bungee cord launches and rocket motor launches. And this was the one hanging from the balloon that was launched in the Gulf of Mexico again. And there it is, in the Gulf of Mexico. And that little tuft of blonde hair right in the middle of that cross that the arrow is pointing at, that is me, my head, right down there at the end of the deck. And this guy here is the chief engineer, Mike Smith, for the balloon manufacturing company, which is today called Aerostar. And he and I directly wrote a scientific paper on the return of balloons as a high altitude research vehicle. That's Steve Mistakis right there. That's Glenn May, who died in the cold flow test of the Spaceship 2 rocket system. I believe that's Gene Hornbuckle down there. And I know these guys. It's probably I can't see his face, so I won't say it. It's probably Chase Reniger right there. All right, this is our next project. This was 17.5-foot long rocket. And the fuel grain, this little piece right here, I got right next to me right now for one of these rockets. This is the oxidizer tank that we had in a greenhouse so that it would stay the pressure under insulation. This is the avionics and the payload section. This rocket was 17.5-foot long, by the way, and was capable of hitting 62 miles. Actually, we should have went much higher, about maybe 70 miles if all worked well. We devised our own electronics, and we came up with a means to defeat the COCOM limits. Yeah, by the way, guys, we did all this on basically shoestring budgets with people working part-time, mainly on the spare time in garages. This was our avionics uplink module that had code so nobody could inadvertently launch this thing ahead of us. This was encrypted. Yeah, and we come up with ways to beat the GPS COCOM limits by developing our own oven controlled oscillator once pulse per second timing system. So it was GPS initiated, but we were going to be able to use civilian GPS to help us track our system in a missile launch, which totally violated the principles of what they thought the controls were on a GPS. We come up with all this out of just some guys, you know, working out of garages, guys. And we built 4 of these ground stations up to help accomplish that task. So there's your Starfish Prime explosion that helped us to find out about EMP. That took place in Hawaii back in 1962. Well, actually the Marshall Islands, but affected Hawaii. This is another altitude type map showing the range of the detonations and what it could do, and the peak fills, how strong the fills are being run. This is the worst place for the fills. This is actually a electrical fill map, unlike the other map that I showed you earlier. So guys, I'm not going to go any further into this. I'm going to stop the share here. We're about done for the night. I got the videos I've done explaining why an EMP attack or even a solar chrome mass ejection, which is not going to take out your electronic devices either. It doesn't matter. It's going to be pointless, guys. Some people get all caught up in some, the nuts and the bolts and they can't see the forest. See, that's the problem, especially all your specialists, all your PhD guys. Not all of them. Peter Vincent probably wasn't this way. They get so focused on this little narrow thing here, they can't see the side anywhere. And they don't have good walking around sense. They don't realize how everything fits together. What really makes things work, how society operates. That's what's important. And these guys miss that. And you get some reporter goes out and talks to these, some kid in college, he's working on a PhD. What does he know? For Pete's sake, good grief. I work within communities of top-notch experts who study this and made their advocation for decades. Well over a decade. I chaired 2 power grid defense conferences. First one back in 2016. I started planning it in 2015. Okay. My concerns in these areas predates that. It goes back to, that about the time of the attack on the Metcat. Well, I actually was worried about before then. But this one, I really started getting concerned. Then we got to do something about this. This is not an academic problem. This is real and probably the biggest threat. There's just too many things that take down a grid, people. But so here's the thing. Bottom line, go watch these other videos because pieces and parts of what I'm saying are in those videos. I'll put the links in here. But the key thing is that Russia or some other nation could put an EMP attack on us. Our grid goes down. We don't know who did it, especially if it comes out of Venezuela or some other place. You won't know who did it, and they'll attack us in several different ways. They want to make sure they make it successful. They will probably have more than one device. There may be a satellite involved. There may be missiles coming up from Venezuela, direct attacks on our substations, and hacking. They're going to come after us everywhere they can, and they'll take down other subsystems. They won't just attack the grid. Of course, once the grid goes down, everything else goes down anyway. But they will be attacking other subsystems just to make sure in case they have a little reserve fuel, keep them going for a little bit. They want to take everything down instantly. Now, this could be a prelude for a larger attack. One of the things the articles allude to, it may or may not be. It may or may not be. Some thoughts are that China will do this, that China has it in their plans already. And this is what some intel people are telling us, that China already plans to attack American forces in the Pacific, especially in the first island group, Guam, Okinawa, Japan, North Korea, that they will try to annihilate our forces with their rocket forces, their DF-21s and all their Dongfeng missiles, their Guam busters, or aircraft carrier busters, as they call them. So that's what a lot of people are concerned that China will try to do. And some intel says that's actually in their plans, that they will attack our forces there. They will attack our satellites so we can't communicate with our forces there. And they might even EMP us. That's the thought. They probably go ahead and EMP us, take down our grid, take our country mostly down, and then hold us for hostage because they still got their strategic missiles. They will then hold us for hostage. And it might, and the thought with Russia is that Russia, and Peter Vincent process, Russia may actually launch their strategic missiles to take out our missile forces, our SAC bases, our not our force base, forget it, it's gone. The NORAD, Cheyenne Mountain, if you hit enough nukes on that mountain, you basically rode it away and we'll take out those hardened facilities in it. It's unfortunate for the guys that are going to go hide there. Everybody knows where they're at. So that's not really the best plan in the world to keep things going. So I'm going to hear 20,000, as many people as responders, be a different answer. Oh, well, they got this, they got that. I always hear these things. A lot of beautiful fantasies, guys. Beautiful fantasies. I hope some of your fantasies are true. But I'm not putting a lot of faith in these things, guys. The bottom line is, and the real question is, if Russia thinks they can take us down, what we think we can do, what we think we got is kind of irrelevant. They'll be tempted to use it. Same with China. So if you could take out our strategic forces, even if the submarines were still operable at sea, if you could take out our strategic forces, take down our grid, what forces we got are suddenly going to be focused on trying to keep the nuke plants from burning out, trying to keep this country together, from keeping losing more people than we're going to lose, trying to mitigate and cut the losses, at least for the elites. They probably don't care 2 cents about us, but they're going to be busy as all heck just trying to keep themselves from dying. And they'll probably use the full force of the federal government and militaries and everything else. The continuity of government is just really the continuity of them. It ain't about us. We know that already. But so that this is what's going to happen. They will try to maintain themselves, but they're going to be totally consumed with that. And a lot of them are based in cities. So then, you know, whoever has hit us just gets to call up immediately and say, oh yeah, by the way, we got a whole bunch more nukes sitting back here in our silos. And if you don't meet certain demands in 30 minutes, an hour, bye-bye New York, bye-bye Chicago. So the thinking there is they may not go for our big cities right off the bat. There's no solace to live in a big city. If the grid goes down, everybody in big cities are, the only thing they're going to have to eat is each other. Big cities are going to be a horrible place to be either way. Maybe the nuke would be a mercy killing. I don't mean that, guys, but you know, it's not going to be pretty any way you shake it at this point. Nothing's going to be pretty, but nobody wants to be nuked. So the nation would probably give in all kind of things. Oh yeah, well, so you got to make sure you don't launch from your submarines would be one condition, just in case they fail to take out the comms as well as they think they will. Now they're thinking they're going to take the comms out. They're thinking they're going to keep us from being able to communicate with these submarines. That's part of why they want to take the satellites out. Satellites and our other comm systems, our structures. Nuke in the United States, EMP in the United States would take out a lot of that. So they could, if they put a first strike on us, and if it's a surprise attack, first strike, they could take us down to the point that we would surrender. Now, here's the other point that they're predicting for Taiwan, that they wouldn't attack Taiwan, wouldn't attack at all. They would take us out. Then they would turn to Taiwan and say, oh, well, who's got you back now? Surrender. Ain't nobody to back you up anymore. Now, Taiwan would at first say, well, you ain't gonna take us, but then they would just blockade Taiwan, cut them off, keep them under blockade for a year or two till the people folded. Then China moves in, everything's intact, including that chip production manufacturing facility. They just walk in and take what they want. Maybe. Chinese are thinking squirt. They're not even talking about burning their own plants. So that's a possibility. That would be the fantasy that China might entertain. And then they can tell the people back home, so look, we didn't do like the Russians. We didn't attack these people that we count as our brothers. Like, you know, Putin made that big speech talking about how Ukraine and Russia were inseparable, were one people. Then he went in and attacked. You know, China might be able to get away with not having to do that. Maybe. But again, they may attack. But that's some of the thinking is that if they can take us out, they don't have to attack, not necessarily. They still might wind up doing it. But guys, I don't know. Now, we've been all over the map tonight. The whole point of this was to prove the following. Loss of the grid is considered electronic warfare by Russia. That's in their doctrine, not nuclear warfare. It doesn't kill Americans directly. You don't die immediately. You just die over the next few months. I mean, something, and nobody's dead, so you're gonna turn around and do even if you know who did it, you got absolute proof who did it, and you still got the wherewithal to attack. But you launch a full-scale nuclear attack on the nation. Question: what they just did to you is going to kill more people than a nuclear war in the long run. But it won't happen immediately. What happens? What do the politicians do? The chances are they're not going to know where it came from. They're not going to know who did it. And probably won't be who they think did it. Right now, would probably suspect Russia. That's all the more reason for North Korea or China to do it, especially China. See? Maybe we do attack Russia. They didn't do it. China did it. So China's going, oh, I got 2 wins for the price of 1. My enemy's out. You know, it's like, you know, how many James Bond movies, old Bond movies like it's the evil mad scientist tries to get the United States and Russia to attack each other, and he's going to have the world. Well, that may be exactly what's playing out today with China. Xi Jinping goes, now I can go take Siberia. I can take anything I want. Taiwan. I can take Japan and eventually North America. I don't know if he can pull that off, but he's accustomed to illusions of grandeur, delusions of grandeur. So there you go, my friends. It is possible to fight and win a nuclear war. You've heard it from Dr. Peter Vincent Pry on my channel. You've heard it from him on Nate's Canadian Prepper channel. You've heard it from Canadian Prepper. You've heard it from me directly. You've heard it from, I think David Pines talked it. And I can bring you a lot of people that can tell you about this kind of scenario. It's possible. It is possible to fight and win a nuclear war. And the advantage goes to he who strikes first. If you do the surprise attack, you do it first. Of course, Russia. How do you fight and win a nuclear war against somebody with a dead hand switch? The only way you can do that possibly is you launch the first strike and take out everything they got. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all. But there you go, my friends. We don't even want to do a launch on morning. We want to absorb the attack and then respond. What? Stupid policy. Our EAMs need some backup. We need some other way to help to authorize the missile commanders, the sub commanders to be able to launch. But they had that little movie, Crimson Tide, oh my God, the submarine commander might go rogue and launch. Slim Pickens might ride a rocket down, a nuke down like a bucking bronco on a Russian city or military base. Never happened, thankfully. But we do have the controls in place, but maybe we went too far, so much so that we can't respond to anything. So we need to rethink these things. Is that going to happen next month? No. Next 6 months? Probably not. Are we going to have a nuclear war next 6 months? You tell me. Possibly. Possibly. So there it is. We have a risk. There is an immediate danger. Not saying it's going to happen. That Putin has said he could fight a nuclear war and win it. And he's also said he thought it would happen. He thought it was inevitable. So maybe he'd just like to do it on his terms. Let's go ahead and get it over with. Strike while the iron is hot. Get it while the getting is good. Or China might decide the same thing. Oh, Russia and the United States are right on the edge. If I can just make it look like Russia did this, the world is mine. Mad scientist kind of thing, right? There you go, guys. That's it. So this whole notion, that whole argument that these guys were the experts, based on that we retaliate when we retaliate massively, which is predicated on we know who did it and we have the ability to retaliate, which I'd submit we won't know who did it and won't be who we thought did it probably. So if we do retaliate, we're going to be hitting the wrong guys. And we probably won't have the means to retaliate. And if we do, we might be under nuclear blackmail of sufficient magnitude. We really got no business retaliating. We might just have to suck it in or take a bigger beating. I don't know, friends. I don't know. These are all possibilities. My guess is they would make sure if we're going to do it that they could take out our strategic forces. Unless North Korea or somebody, you could have some other rogue. There's some missing nukes in the world. Here's the one wild card, guys. They're missing nukes. We don't know who has them. Could be some rogue intelligence agency, a cartel. Who's got them? We're missing a few. Russians are probably missing a few. What happened to the ones that were in South Africa? Yeah, there's some. South Africa thought they've had 4 or 5, and until their government fell, the end of their apartheid government. There's missing nukes in the world. Where are they? What if somebody with a missing nuke put their own Chung Chung gang in the Gulf of Mexico? What if they just did their balloon launch rocket like I did? See, I started that stuff 25 years ago. Oh yeah. Here's my motor that went on that big long rocket. This was the test motor. Fuel grain, hybrid fuel grain, right here. Okay, Mr. PhD candidate, you show me something like that. Show me your expertise. Show me you are bona fide. Go ahead, spit it out. You weren't even born when I was reading books on military strategy, my friend, because I bought books on military strategy from my military book club when I was 14 years old, barely 14, probably ordered them when I was 13. I was studying those books. I had a big interest instead of watching. I don't even know anything. I couldn't tell you what a down in football is. I don't know jack diddle about football, except Alabama tends to dominate. Just cool considering I'm from Alabama. I don't know jack diddle about football. I don't know anything about who's on television. Don't care. It's waste. It's a huge major distraction and waste of mental resources. I stay up all hours and have for decades studying what the heck is really going on in the world and trying to figure out ways to do something about it. That, my space advocacy, our power grid defense, our Freedom Restoration Foundation, or survival tribes. I'm of the belief that we can do something about it. And so I bring David Pine on here. We can push and pursue for peace. Problem is, right now, the whole world seems to be bent all out of joint to go full bore into war on both sides. Neither side seems to be doing anything that is moving us toward peace. We seem to be on a collision course with war. We better be praying, guys. Prep and pray. That's our final way through this. Prep and pray. And some of us will keep pushing and hopefully find a way out of this. But prep and pray. Be right with your maker. Let your family know you love them. And enjoy every day you can for what's left. Whatever breath you got, enjoy it. Chances are when all these things hit, you're going to survive it. Unless you live at ground zero on one of these targets. You're going to survive it. So buckle up. Get ready for the ride. It's not going to be any fun. But it's what you make out of it. I beat this horse way too long. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for watching and reg out.